You guys are listening to the Jordan Garber Now Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify.
Newest and hottest in the world of pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on Powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 6,000 hours of the best events from over 150 of your favorite promotions from 20 different countries around the globe. Brands like Progress Wrestling, Evolve Wrestling, Combat Zone, Defy, PCW Ultra, PWX, Over the Top, Shine, and hundreds of others with fresh content added every day for only $5.99 per month. Get your free trial today at Powerslam.tv.
You heard them. Use promo code PowerSlamNow. All right, guys. Coming up next, Molly McCoy on the Jordan Garber Now Podcast. Do you enjoy talking to your favorite wrestling superstars? Well, Jordan Garber Now has an opportunity for you. For only $5.99, you get to have a 10 to 15 minute conversation with any of your favorite Jordan Garber Now interviewees. Send me a Facebook message for more information. Ladies and gentlemen, this is none other than the Jordan Garber Now Podcast, and obviously you know who I am, but more people know who she is, and that's none other than Molly McCoy. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me on, Jordan. I'm happy to be here.
Well, it is great to have you on the program. You know, 2 years in the business, you have done big things already, and things have just started. But when it comes down to it, it always goes down to psychology, ring development, and learning the very basics. And Halloween and Fire Ant were the two mentors to you to do so. You cannot ask for a better trainer in today's trend of professional wrestling. How was that experience walking in the door for the first time?
Oh my God. I was so nervous and so scared walking in the door the first time, because when I finally pulled the trigger and decided I'm going to go train to wrestle, my biggest thing that I couldn't get out of my head was crap, what if I'm not good? What if I take a bump and I'm like, this sucks, this isn't for me? Because I didn't know what plan B was if wrestling wasn't going to work. At the time I was just right out of college, couldn't find a job because the job market sucked for what I went to school for. And I was like, well, I'm not really getting any younger. I think I should finally try wrestling, but I'm really glad that it stuck. I took my first couple bumps and was like, well, that's not so bad. I think I can figure it out. But yeah, Hollow Wicked and Fire Ant were absolutely incredible trainers for me. Still kept in contact with them while COVID's going on before I really came back and tried to have my first couple of comeback shows. And having so many trainers at the Wrestle Factory really helped, because everyone had a different way of teaching. So if it was oh, my drop kick really sucks and I'm not getting it with Hollow Wicked, maybe Fire Ant has some advice that'll help. Getting to go to so many different brains, and we had so many quality vets there too, Dasher Hatfield and Murlock, that you could go to and be what do I do about this? It was really open, very talkative, easy to communicate in an atmosphere.
No, absolutely. And when it comes to your first few matches here in Chikara in the year of 2019, that is a lot of pressure, going on towards, you wrestled a lot of independents in 2019, but what's it like? Just people like Lady Frost, Boomer Hatfield, Hermit Crab, you worked all these guys in Reading, New Jersey, Delaware, so you're making towns too. So how did you soak in the road trip process of the independent industry? Because I remember going on the road to Wisconsin and Minneapolis with the likes of Hotshot Danny Duggan, and man, it was one of the best times I've ever had as a wrestling journalist. So what are some of your road stories, kind of in the beginning, just getting used to it? How long was the adjustment?
Oh my gosh. I was a strange case because I know a lot of people will have their first match when they're like 6 months to a year in. I started training in like 2015, like August of 2015, and I didn't debut until like March of 2019.
That's good though.
So yeah, I kind of like 2 years or so in, I was kind of bitter about it because I felt like people were lapping me, and I was like, what am I not getting? What am I doing wrong? But that wasn't necessarily the case. And now looking back, I'm really grateful because, a lot of people's first matches go to YouTube and they're like, ugh, it's not exactly what I want everybody to see. Like, for the first time is my first match. So I'm really happy with the content that I have put out so far. But like, I spent a lot of time on the road as a student first. Like, I think the furthest that I'd ever gone was Chicago, and I was doing it first, like, as a student. But I'm trying to think of like what any of my really wacky stories would be.
Maybe not just stories, but like maybe just adjusting to the road and learning the road, because there are rules of the road as well.
There are, and it was especially strange, like, being in the bubble of Chikara, as they call it, because, like, so much of my time was dedicated to being in Philadelphia and just being, like, in the same location for, like, nearly a year, that, like, when we did get on the road, it was still, like, with a lot of the same kind of people. Like, I trained with Boomer and Hermit Crab and Lady Frost and all of them. So, like, it's people that I felt confident working, which was super helpful in my first year too, to where it was like, oh, we're going to call a trios match. It's going to be like 12 to 15 minutes, which sounds super intimidating, but like, these are all people I work with every single week. This is all stuff like, and we had all kinds of in-house terms where like you could call it and I would immediately know the next 2 minutes. Like, so I wouldn't call them crutches, but they were like just really helpful little tidbits that I know I can only use with specific people, but it's still like, even now, I primarily try to stay within my bubble and wrestle people that I'm most comfortable wrestling, like people that I've been around during the pandemic. I think people are going to get pretty sick of me and Boomer versus Oreo Speedwagon because we've wrestled them so many times now, but it's just, those are the people that I'm comfortable being around in that atmosphere.
Definitely. There's a lot of guys that you get comfortable working with, and, just certain guys I ref as well. You're just comfortable working their match. But what was really the first few challenges, going into your career? What were you really struggling with going into your first series of matches?
Finding an opponent half the time.
A good one to work with that connects pretty much.
Well, because like there's still, it's not common, but there have definitely been a few occasions where like I would travel with other friends because, like I said, like I had people at the factory I was close with that were lapping me, but they would be cool with like bringing me along to shows, like just to kind of network and stuff. And after, meeting the guys there and being there a couple times, they'd be like, man, yeah, I'd really like to have you on, but I don't have another woman for you. And I'd be like, you don't have to have another woman for me. I'll wrestle whoever you want.
Exactly.
But, like, it's, I've mostly probably wrestled men more than I have women in my career, and I'm non-binary myself, so, like, it really makes absolutely no difference to me. Like,
I agree. Like, certain promotions that have that kind of thing where it's like, and I've seen that happen lots of times too. And, everybody has where, why can't a woman work a guy? What's the difference? What's the big deal?
I respect it because I'm not the promoter and I'm not the one that's putting out the product, but
that's
like,
true too.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a drag because, you fight so hard for an opportunity and you're qualified. Totally, obviously, every woman wrestler is qualified to step in there with a guy and have a 5-star match.
Yeah.
And I feel like promoters' rules are rules and you have to respect certain ones, but I got to give credit to the promoters that promote intergender wrestling. Speaking of which, did you wrestle for Pizza Party Wrestling?
I've wrestled for Pizza Party several times.
That's
Yeah, I love
amazing.
Pizza Party.
Does everyone get pizza, or like how was that about? What was the
Yeah, we
experience
get,
there? How was that
well,
crowd?
we do actually get paid, but like we also will get paid in pizza, which is pretty sweet.
Yay!
But I've been going to Pizza Party from the beginning, and then eventually, like I think on their third show, Grapple Picking, is when I got a match against Ava Everett. That was really fun, and Boomer Hatfield and I have wrestled there a couple of times. We've been trying to get out more as a tag team and be looked at more so as tag team wrestlers than just singles guys, as fun as singles matches are. But I think I have the most fun and feel the most confident in tags. So Boomer and I have had a few tags at Pizza Party. There's a Pizza Party show that we taped not too long ago, coming out soon. We got a tag against the main event. They're a team that's they're House of Glory guys from New York, and they're super good.
Nice.
They should be everywhere. But yeah, I've been on several Pizza Party shows. Had some of my favorite matches there. Had a really good scramble there last December that I really enjoyed.
Awesome. What was that scramble? Who was in that?
Oh my gosh.
If you can remember, name at least like one person.
I think I can remember everyone in there, but Pizza Party kind of started out as a lot of guys that were friends in backyarding. So it was a lot of dudes that were coming back for the first time after like taking some years off and finally going legit. So it was Midnight Coal Company, who are a tag team of Russell Best and Brad Rush. I think they do single stuff now though. Tyrannosaurus Flex, which is one of my favorite names in wrestling. Matt Vertigo. I think Dougie Mosa and Greg Auburn, and that was everybody in there.
Nice.
So a lot of Pizza Party regulars, but a lot of dudes that were super easy to work with, and that like I know I'd have a great match with no matter what.
I love asking this question. I love asking wrestlers this question. We asked former Major League pitcher Shane Umon this question as well the other night. When it comes to working in front of crowds, what kind of crowds have you been working in front of, and like which ones do you enjoy working in front of the most, and maybe not so much, and which ones are pretty much your favorites to do a show in front of?
Best crowd to work in front of are kids. Kids are always the best because they just get like so invested and so behind everything. Sometimes they get a little too rowdy, and then you like kind of want the parents to reel them back in a little bit, but like. It's nobody screams louder and claps harder than kids. There's so much fun to perform for. And non-wrestling fans are always a really interesting crowd. Like I've gotten to be at a couple of like no ring shows, and it's mostly just like bar patrons and the couple of people that knew that there was a wrestling show going on. So it's this funny mix of wrestling fans that are super into it, and then bar patrons being like, what is going on? And then being super invested by the end of it. I think those are probably my favorite. A typical wrestling crowd is fun. But actually like hooking people in for the first time is both a challenge and feels really rewarding.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I remember doing the, I don't know, have you heard of the Tony Condello Northern Death Tour?
I have not. What is that?
Oh, you are in for a treat. You're in for a story here. Tony Condello is a very legendary wrestling promoter in Winnipeg who is responsible for bringing Chris Jericho, Lance Storm, Christian, Edge, Rhino to stardom.
Yeah.
And that's how they started their careers, was on this infamous Northern Death Tour that I did in February, and I came back with a skid of my life, basically. It's known as the most hellacious tour. Why? Is because I'm calling, obviously, from Winnipeg, Manitoba, so you know how far north that is, or how far up. And now imagine going more and more north, driving on a total ice road in the middle of in the winter.
Oh, my God.
With a crew of 8 guys.
In like a van?
Like literally on these northern reserves. These northern reserves up north. So you're going on these really random northern communities, culture shock, where everything's expensive. Like I remember like 12-pack of water was $60. $60 Canadian. It was unbelievable. I lived off Tim's, coffee and muffins and like canned food, because you're supposed to bring one bag of food that lasts the whole 2-week tour. So you're wrestling 18 shows in a row up north, driving up to like 18 hours night out. It tests the skill if you want to be in it. And I don't know how I survived. There is backup in case I screwed up, but I remember at the end, I said I couldn't do another day. And now that's why I sit here and do podcasts. But it was hell. And I still ref. I still love it. But until I, get back in shape and gain some weight, and train and get that badge, I want to make sure that I can continue to sit here in the studio and provide great shows. But yeah, it was a crazy story. We almost fell through the ice and died. It was intense. So that's with wrestlers and all that. That's where you determine brotherhood with the boys and the crew, because that's the ultimate test. And it was pretty crazy. So
see, I don't think my crew's ever almost died, but there was I think the closest comparison I can make to that within wrestling was the trip where every single car got a ticket. That's the closest I have. I've lived in the mountains, so I was anticipating oh, it's going to sound a little bit like the time I spent in the mountains. It didn't. No, that's not quite it.
I don't know how the ring crews are like in the States, but I simply don't know how I did it. I am really skinny. I drink soda every day, and I was setting up this ring every single day, and I felt like that this was it. I'm done, and I still forced myself to go through it. So my question for you, what are the ring crews like in the States? Do they have their own ring crews, a whole separate crew, or does it vary by promotion sort of thing?
So I was in a very unique circumstance, which I can say about a lot of things involving Chikara, including with...
You don't mind if I smoke, Molly, right? Is it not big? Okay.
Doesn't matter to me.
Just respect, that's all.
No, I appreciate that. If I was still with Chikara, I might, because hard PG, but now that I'm not, I'm a little not going crazy, but a little bit I don't mind a lot of stuff. You don't mind if I curse, do you?
Yeah, go ahead. This is you can say whatever you want.
Form, but all right, I don't mind a lot of shit then. So when I started at Chikara, it was maybe 20 students. It was myself, Travis Huckabee, Crummels and Defarge. I think the Cyberhawks came not too much later. But it was only about 20 students. And it just kept growing and growing to the point where we had somewhere around, I'm talking 70 students, full time. And then kids that were taking classes every couple of weeks. So, and it was required as a student that you be at ring crew, which a ring crew of 20 kids, I think that's reasonable. But then you started having 70 kids that were there for ring crew.
Oh my.
So we wound up having to have a road crew where it was all right, we just can't bring everybody. This is going to be team A and team B. So setup was always really easy for a long time, just because we had a small army to break down and set up the rings, and we would...
And then it got larger.
We did a decent number of baseball shows over the summer of 2019, where we were going over to Reading, New York, Delaware, and we had to break down and put together the ring twice in a single night, where I think we had to do it 3 or 4 times in a single night. So by the end of that summer, we got super fast at it. But anywhere else, at any other promotion, they don't really have a ring crew. They have, if there are students for the promotion, they'll be there. But normally no one else has 70-something students. And or it'll be people that are just there to network and be hey, I'm here to help out. If if a spot opens up for me, I'm here, but I'm mostly just here to help out. So that's how it usually works over here. There were a few times where Chikara was working with Beyond or Blitzkrieg Wrestling, and a car full of students would go to help, and the promoter would be I have never had this many people. I don't know what to do with you all.
And watch them all expect to get a PO at the end of the show. They're all gonna... in Canada, in Winnipeg, we usually do it with 5 people. It's crazy.
Yeah.
One day it was me and one other guy. That was it.
There was by the end of those summer shows when everyone was getting really sick of doing ring crew, all of a sudden our 70 students were not showing up to do crew. So it wound up turning into like 10 people trying to load the truck up, and we're like, whatever happened to our 60 something other students? Why is it just us? And it would be like kids that had just debuted, or I don't even want to say just debuted, but like they'd been wrestling for a little bit, and it was like, oh, we got 70 something students here. Why are you doing this?
Yeah, it makes wrestling, it gives, it's that whole, grind aspect of wrestling, I guess. But yeah, have you ever had to set up like a cage or anything that like took forever? That
they
was
wouldn't
horrible.
let me set up the cage because I'm tiny. But it was really funny. There was we mentioned it before recording. There's a promotion called SWO, Susquehanna Wrestling Organization, where they had a cage match. And I was like, do you want me to help set up the cage? And they were like, no, we have enough people. Like, we've got like some bigger dudes. And I was like, that's cool. I'm probably not strong enough to hold this up anyway. I just wanted to offer. It's maybe the smallest cage I've ever seen. But like it's still an effective cage no matter what. But whoever was in the match, there was a scramble prior to the cage match that Alex Zane was in, and I was like, Alex could hurdle this cage if he was in this match.
That's hilarious.
That is how short it was.
Hey, a cage is a cage, I guess.
True. Like, you can still throw somebody against it and you gotta climb over it. I would rather people not try to climb over most cages that we have on the indies. I don't think they're as indestructible as, the Fed ones, but...
How was your match against Solo Darling in the, September of 2019?
I'm real bummed that the footage is lost.
Oh, it's gone?
Yeah, we had some kind of major mess up with the cameras, because that whole show was pretty good. But we had a major malfunction with the cameras, so like the show just never got posted. But I had known Solo, and she'd been a mentor for like many, many months before. I'd go as far as to say like a year prior. So getting to have a match with her was a really good learning experience. I made some mistakes in that match that I wouldn't make again, that in the moment, like I've had a lot of times where like I realized in the moment the mistake that I've made that I could have done to change it. Like in that case, like I think like I had slapped her back when I really wanted to like work the side, just because like this just is what, looks a lot more effective. This makes a lot more sense. This actually hurts as opposed to just like slapping you. But these are things you learn with repetition. Mm-hmm. Like it's stuff that you're not going to get right away. I had another match where Still Life with Apricots and Pears was in the match, and they rolled out before I was supposed to give them the move, and I should have gone back in to get them. I didn't, and I just kept whacking the other people in the match until eventually everyone was like, all right, we've realized she's lost. Let's just take this home then. But yeah, I like the match with Solo a lot. I really wish people could see it. Maybe we'll run it back sometime.
Yeah, hopefully sometime in the future. I always feel like footage is so important. If I was a wrestler full time, I would want to have every single one of my matches taped. Are you one of those talents that just, you have your phone and it's like, okay, can you please tape my match?
I don't think I've ever asked anyone to tape my match for me because I think I'm a little too reliant on the cameras, and I probably should have learned that lesson after losing the Solo match. But I want to have as much footage and as many photos and just like as much proof that this career has happened. Like I want the magazine that says I'm in the PWI, stuff like that. Well,
you were in there.
Yeah, right. And I'm a nominee for Rookie of the Year too. Like as of the date of this podcast being recorded, I'm still a nominee. We don't know who Rookie of the Year is yet, but I can't watch my matches back.
It's hard for me to watch some of the stuff I ref back too.
No, I don't like it. I don't like watching my matches back. It gives me like this.
Especially like your very first one.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I've watched back some stuff that I was like, I don't want to, but I'm going to press play. Like, I think most of the matches I ever watch back anymore are mine and Boomer's, and it's because Boomer's big on watching his matches back.
And I remember watching this video, and when the wrestler that goes on the second rope and he sells to the crowd, I'm standing there and I'm daydreaming. I'm just so caught up in the moment that he literally has to physically move me, and then he goes on the ropes and sells to the crowd. Like, that's horrible. I felt so bad after. It was pretty funny. That was my first match, and it was in Saskatoon, and I just remember looking back at it. I went to the back and I said, "All right, what did I do wrong?" And he's like, "Well, everything." It was pretty
What did you do right?
Oh man,
what happens though? That's your first couple of times you get really caught up. I don't know, you're not really expecting like some of the reactions you get from the crowd, or like to have the connection that you do right away. Like I worked a show at a camp where just like I was one of the heels in there, and the kids hated me right away, and it just started going back and forth with them, and I'm like, oh crap, I gotta hop back in here.
No, it's definitely a learning experience, and like a lot of wrestlers say on this show, the one day you feel like you know everything in this business, you gotta walk out the door.
Yeah. Or you gotta go to another school or talk to somebody you haven't talked to yet, because there's always somebody you haven't talked to yet.
I don't like I want, when it comes to training too, it's so important for someone like myself to find such a reputable trainer, which I've been managing to do. Because there's some people that wrestle for a year and there's like, all right, I'm gonna open up my academy. There we go. Let's get newcomers. Let's go. And then they're not reputable trainers. And then these guys wrestle and they get hurt or hurt others, and it's not good. So.
Right, it's dangerous enough when you have a reputable trainer, because just accidents are still gonna happen. But I'm very fortunate where I am in like the Philly, Jersey area, because we just have an insane amount of quality schools up here. Having come from the Wrestle Factory, and more recently, I've been going to the Worldwide Dojo where Cheeseburger and Sumi Sakai teach. So
Cheeseburger's a great guy. I met him in Hopkins, Minnesota.
Yeah, he's wonderful. I've already learned like even more than I was already learning from the trainers I initially started with, just because Burger has such a different take on wrestling and different experiences. Still haven't gotten to go to class with Sumi yet, but I cannot wait for the day I finally get to go to a class with her.
Definitely. That's going to be quite the learning experience right there. So talk about GCW. You're in the gauntlet there, and that's a really well followed promotion, and that was at GCW's Effie's Big Gay Brunch. So that was a pay-per-view. So how was that?
Yeah. It was very unexpected. I'm gonna be honest with you. I did not expect to go to the Collective at all, but I had really been campaigning. When the Collective was initially happening in Tampa WrestleMania weekend, I wanted to get on Big Gay Brunch so badly, because a big reason that I decided to take the leap into wrestling was because I felt like I had something to add as a femme performer and as a queer performer, that our voices are just starting to get heard. We're just starting to get shows like Effie's Big Gay Brunch, and wrestlers like Effie are finally like starting to get the attention they've deserved. But I never really anticipated working for GCW. So just the fact that like a bunch of queer talent got showcased in a crowd that was not necessarily the kind of crowd that we get at LGBT shows was...
No, GCW is a tough crowd to work in front of. And
different.
They were a good crowd, though. Very different.
It's different, but like they got behind us, and that was our biggest hurdle, our biggest, task going in there, was like get the crowd to really back us up and deserve to them that like we deserve this spot too. That we deserve to be on shows other than the LGBT shows. Like we deserve a spot on the main roster too.
Oh, absolutely. Just like everybody else, equality, right? Number
That's
one.
The name of the game.
Well, it's good. It's good to know we're on the same page. And yeah. I was just saying about crowds, you're talking about crowds again. I remember the two toughest crowds I remember, encountering was the crowds that are not too familiar on the product and are kind of silent, so they're not reacting to the babyface and the heel, and the
Right.
bar crowds, like the crowds at Premier
Oh, where
Championship
they just, you
Wrestling.
can do anything and they don't care.
You can, but they're rough, man. Like I
Yeah.
remember I had this bad wacky hairdo, and they yell, "Get a haircut!" and like they threw stuff at me. It's crazy.
Right, they start making fun of your tattoos or something because they don't care.
They're ruthless, man.
They
How
are.
was that an adjustment, or did you just just go right through it?
I kind of just tried to have the same match that I always have. I tried to be just as like, I'm not going to care less just because this crowd cares less. Because there's going to be at least one person in this crowd that's going to appreciate it, even if it's like my friends that came to watch the show. Like, At least I will put on a show for them. If, these 20 other people are like falling out of their chair drunk already because we're, number 8 on a 10-match card in a bar.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Bar shows are so fun, but man, those crowds, you have to have a thick skin. That's for sure.
You do, yeah. Or you got to be real confident in being a heel and like actually really enjoy being booed and heckled and not take it too seriously. I definitely have like my on and off switch where it's like, all right, I am on and the performer, nothing can break me down right now. And then I have the off where I'm like, all right, give me a second. Don't critique me right now. I don't have the brain power or emotional stability.
Definitely. What was I gonna say? It was in reference to no, I wasn't gonna say chemistry. Let's just go to the top 3 until I remember that statement. We always do a top 3 on the program, always a positive one. Top 3 wrestlers in terms of mentorship that you've had, besides Hallowick and Fire Ant, because those are obviously a gimme. Who are 3 people you've worked with in your career after graduating that were mentors to you?
Who aren't my trainers.
Who aren't your trainers?
Who aren't my trainers. My big mentors. I would say Solo Darling was super helpful in the beginning for me. And she's still been like, she'll still watch my match and she'll still, tell me what I can and can't fix. Kimberly at Chikara has also been massively helpful for me. She's always like willing to talk and she's always willing to watch what I'm doing and give any kind of advice, whether it's on like wrestling itself or just navigating social waters backstage and like how politics work and all that. And Dasher Hatfield, who now goes by a very good professional wrestler, but he is my uncle and my cousin's dad, my cousin Boomer's dad, and he's consistently been there for us, even when like we're not getting along especially well. He's just always been there for us and always been incredibly helpful. I wish I had I wasn't saying the same exact thing for everybody, but that's really just what it boils down to. It's just knowing that I have people that have been through it and have the knowledge and they're in my corner is just been the biggest help for me.
No, absolutely. It's always good to have those mentors by your side. And coming back to what I was going to say, finally remembering my thought, being a big contribution in the East Coast, where else do you want to work, after this coronavirus is over in Canada and the United States? And then we'll go to the next question in terms of international after that.
I really want to get on Beyond. I can't wait for when Uncharted Territory can come back safely, because I think what they were doing with a weekly independent wrestling show was super cool. And it's a bummer that they aren't doing shows for the rest of the year. I think shows are really about to drop off as it gets colder and we can't safely do outdoor shows. But Beyond is a major feather I want to get in my cap. And getting to work for GCW again would be incredible. I have some really good friends there that I would love to get the chance to be on that big stage with them. I've been moving more into doing hardcore matches because I have so many weapons at my disposal. Like, as a hockey playing wrestler, it's kind of foolish not to book me in street fights and hardcore matches.
How'd you come up with that character altogether, kind of, before we move on to that question? Like, how did that all come about? Because that's very unique. Actually, we had Brian Propp on the show, and he was a legendary Philadelphia Flyer. So, like, what's the influence about all of that?
It was, it's kind of just what made sense. I was doing hockey prior, and my cousin's a baseball. So, like, I feel like it's a lot to explain to people who aren't familiar with us, or who aren't really fans of, like, super zany out there wrestling. They just want to see, like, the guy in the black trunks punch somebody. Like, I think when I come out in a bright orange jersey and Boomer's in his baseball mask, people are kind of like, what the heck?
What's going on?
There's a lot to take in here. They're cousins. They're sports balls. There's a lot happening that, like, you don't want commentary to have to explain a whole freaking story. But it's what made sense. It's got legs. It's got, there's a lot of stories I can tell. And, I had another friend who was a longtime Chikara fan talking to me after, my weekend at King of Trios, where she was like, what you're doing is super different from what a lot of other girls are doing, because I think a lot of girls are afraid to, like, be ugly. If that's not the best word for it, but, like, be, kind of raw and, like, make some ugly faces and, like, not look perfect, I would say. Like, there's a ton of girls that have, like, that raw badass gimmick, but, like, it's scary in your first year, but it's what made sense to me. There's still plenty of times where I'm like, man, I kind of wish I had the cute girl gimmick. I kind of just want to be pretty, but, like, I'm happy with where I am because it's me.
Oh, exactly. And if you're being you in the ring, that is a very good quality, and that's the best character you can kind of perfection and perform with. And one thing is you want to make sure that you have something different and not the same of, like, everybody else. And you definitely did that with that character. Like, the last time I think there was anything hockey related was the Goon in, like, 93.
I gotta have my match with the Goon.
It was a very
out of retirement.
I would pay to see that. Yeah. But when it comes to the Goon, like, he was a great character, but everything was white jersey, white everything. But you kind of stepped it up with, like, the whole, different colors, because orange is a very bright color that can attract an audience.
Yeah.
Right away, when someone sees orange, their eye is going to turn on you. Like, I like Orange Crush too. So there we go. We have something in common. But
I think it's kind of like, I think it comes out of All Japan, when all of the guys were kind of color coordinated. Like, you associate Misawa with the green gear. So that same kind of thing happened in Chikara, where people just became color coordinated, where, like, Huckabee is yellow and Crumbles and Defarge are brown. And it's the most basic play on the human brain, is if I can associate a color with this character, that now gives me, like, kind of underlying feelings about this character.
Yeah, definitely. So, what women's division roster do you see yourself contributing the most? And now everyone might say WWE in terms of that, but in terms of, like, the relevance and the trend and the frequency of viewership and legacy in the wrestling business, what women's roster would you see yourself on, and what do you want to be on? Would that be Japan, Mexico, AEW, WWE, anywhere?
Japan's a goal. Japan is really, like, my big goal, because I love Joshi wrestling. Like, I think All Japan Women's was the greatest promotion of all time.
It was great.
Stardom is still probably my favorite promotion right now. I watch anytime that they come on for free on YouTube, because for some reason I struggle to sign up for the actual Stardom account. I think it's because they think that my credit card is being stolen since it's being used in Japan. But I absolutely love Stardom. I love that style. I think they're so, like, those girls are just miles ahead of everyone else. Like, and I think even that just shows when there was a WWE Survivor Series match where it started off with Kairi Sane and Io Shirai. And I was like, nobody's going to be able to follow these two. Like, you put the two of them together, knowing each other so well already, there's no one's going to be able to top them. NXT's women's division is incredible right now.
So good right now.
So stacked. But, like, so is AEW's. And so is Impact. I think Impact has such an underrated women's division right now.
Deonna Purrazzo, like, great talent.
Deonna, Jordan, Kim, Su Yung, Kylie Ray. Like, they've just, like, it's incredibly stacked. There's really no women's division I would not be happy to be a part of, because I think it'd be an honor to be a part of any of them. Who I could give the most to, I'd say AEW is probably doing the best with representation in the women's division, because they've had on so many queer women and non-white women. They have so many women they're bringing in from Japan, which, the thing about COVID, they don't have, like, as many Joshis on anymore because they can't bring them over, and that really sucks. So probably NXT or Impact. But, like, of them all, like, I really would absolutely love to get to Stardom. Or I would love for another show like Lucha Underground to come around again. Like, Lucha Underground was super innovative in what it was doing. There was no other promotion like that on TV when it was on.
Yeah, Lucha Underground was a really solid. I like the whole background, the whole setting, and the whole way it was. I believe it's still on Netflix, actually. You could still check that out.
They did put it on Netflix.
When it comes to the coronavirus and everything that's been going on right now, you as an independent contractor pro wrestler, how have you been adjusting to this, and what is your game plan for the future once this whole thing is blown off?
It's been rough. I'm fortunate that I don't have to rely on wrestling for income. But I've probably been working more now than ever, and it sucks because it's exhausting. Like, even when I can go and wrestle, and I try not to wrestle every weekend, or at least definitely not multiple times in a weekend. I try not to do like a Friday and a Saturday, for my own safety and for other people's safety. And there's been times where I've just had to miss out on shows because like there was a scare at my job and I don't want to potentially take that to the show. But like I was saying, I've been trying to get out with the people that I've already been around and feel safe being around during the pandemic. Trying to get back to training more full time, which is hard with work. And I'm trying to get back to that good work wrestling balance that I had before I had to be at work all the time because of COVID, and when it was, a little bit safer to be indoors with other people. So get back on a full training regimen, because I can feel it, especially in tag matches. Boomer moves super fast and I don't move super fast. I didn't feel so blown up on my first couple matches back. Like my Camp Leapfrog Trios match, I felt pretty good. The match I had with Still Life with Apricots and Pears at Poly Cult Party, I felt surprisingly good for a street fight after that. But after a couple of those tags, I was like, man, I wish I could be doing more, really. And I've tried getting the home workouts and running and getting out of the house when I can. But yeah, that's my big goal moving forward, is getting that work-life balance. And then once it is safer to take on more work, then try to get to as many places as I can. But for now, I'm kind of picking my bookings sparingly.
Is there any suggestions or anything you think the big boys, the major players, should do to continue to provide entertainment on during this coronavirus? Should they continue it at all? Like, what do you think?
I don't know. I've never worked on that scale, so I don't feel like
That's a good point.
I can have an opinion on that. I think the way the couple of promotions I've been working for, I'm really happy with how they've handled things. I was super happy with how the collective got handled, actually. The dressing room was the size of a barn. It was like, yeah, it was very easy to spread out and not be too close to people. And the majority of people kept their masks on, and I could keep my mask on when I wasn't wrestling. It's stuff like that. It's maybe like, I think the best thing you could do if you want to still have shows moving into winter and like don't feel comfortable with indoor venues, because the issue with indoor venues is like if you have a limited crowd, then you're not going to be making any kind of money. I think tapings are really still the way to go moving forward. But maybe like doing, heated tents like they've done for outdoor events in the winter. I don't think that's the worst idea if you want to have some kind of fan inclusion. A lot of my area is going through spikes again. So I don't know that I would want to include fans to any capacity yet.
I can certainly agree with that. Well, Molly, looks like we covered a lot of great topics here on the Jordan Garber Now podcast. Before we wrap things up, where can people follow you on social media, whether they're listening from Philly, from Winnipeg, or anywhere across the world?
The only place you can find me is on Twitter. I am at _Molly McCoy_, not on Facebook, Instagram, or any of that. So anything about anything about merch, upcoming shows, tapings that are debuting, it's all at _Molly McCoy_. And any merch can be found at boomerhatfield.bigcartel.com, because I let Boomer handle all the merch. I just yell at people to buy it.
Awesome. Well, I might have to buy myself a shirt.
Yeah. Or hat. We got hats now.
You guys got hat? Is it like the baseball hat or?
No, they're beanies for winter.
Oh, that's awesome. I needed myself a new beanie, so I might have to get myself a Boomer beanie.
Hell yeah.
Right on. Well, Molly McCoy, thank you for being on the Jordan Garber Now podcast. Are you that wrestling fan looking for that perfect television package to meet your needs? Well, Real Aid Media has the perfect option for you. With the Wrestling Box promo, you pay for the box for $199.95. After that, you're only paying $29.95 per month with no contracts and no obligations. Real Aid Media also provides marketing services operating in 5 countries. To book an appointment or to get your wrestling package, go to stevenbenzelock.bookify.com. That's Steven Benzelock at bookify.com. Check it out. Real Aid Media, providing great wrestling content for a cheap price. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Jordan Garber Now podcast, and we are covering some more news and tips here with none other than Phil Stamper. Phil, welcome back, man. How you been doing?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
I'm doing really good. I can't complain. I'm just hanging out here in the beautiful north end of Winnipeg, Manitoba, about to order myself a pepperoni pizza. So life isn't much better for me right now. I'm looking forward to it. And Jordan Garber Now is giving away a Chris Jericho action figure on Friday. So, you know what? It can't be much better for the fans. So, when it comes down to wrestling news lately, what's really caught your eye this week? You know, I watched Raw. It's still going on right now. I think it's okay so far. But what do you think of the overall the big leagues, the past few weeks? That's WWE, Impact, and AEW altogether. Which one's been striving the most, do you think, out of the 3, making the most momentum?
So I will say, just because one of the things that annoyed me sometimes in the past about Impact Wrestling the most is that I thought their storylines would sometimes get a little wonky, that they wouldn't pay off in the end, that you'd sort of get like not really a resolution. You'd get, okay, here's the culmination. Okay, we're splitting, but we didn't really resolve it. And I really felt Bound for Glory was the statement they needed to make in many ways, many respects, that it really put the finishing nail on a number of their storylines. There's still some things coming out of it that are like, okay, where are you going to go from here? But it was good to see it. It was good that they didn't just fully pull that switch of, we're going to rely on all of the former WWE guys. Like, they have now incorporated, Rhino, Heath, the Good Brothers, everybody who's come in is now incorporated as part of the product. They didn't lean entirely on that, because that was also in old Impact. That was a failing that I feel like they did, and they really have established themselves that they are fine. Now, of course, some of the negative is what WWE faced. They didn't have a crowd. So as all the production was good, as some of the wrestling was good, you didn't have this crowd sorry, I'm distracted. What are you doing?
I was just trying to bug my friend. I can't believe this thing's on like a pedestal and like it rolled.
Oh.
You know what? It's like a dolly camera or some shit. Who knows?
Okay, gotcha.
Sorry, go on. I'm so sorry.
No, I was like, are you trying to show
It's an
me
ornament.
something?
It's an ornament.
I gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so Impact overall, I thought Bound for Glory was pretty strong. Again, little things here and there, and of course the biggest hit that they're taking right now is that they don't have a crowd. WWE Hell in a Cell, again, delivered many points. Again, everybody's going to be the worst critic in the world. Social media was like, watching the opening match. The opening match.
Yeah, they were all angry for no reason.
Right. And then the match is great. It went the length a Hell in a Cell match should. But then the ending felt like it was some people felt like it was a disservice. I thought it was paying good homage to what the story was and the payoff in the end. And here comes Afa and Sika in the end, and like crowning Roman Reigns the new chief. Like that has a lot of significance and power. And in a way, it's also like they chose Roman over than the Usos. So now Roman is leading the family. And in the internal wrestling circle, that's also big because the Samoan family and Afa's family have had so much of a legacy inside the world of wrestling. So the fact that they're paying homage to that, they're played off that storyline, they did a really good job with that, I thought.
Oh, they did a great job.
Yeah. Was there maybe a little bit too much of like, oh, my dear brother, oh, you're down in the ring, oh, don't leave me alone, oh, my brother, there was a little bit of the drama. But it worked towards what they were building to.
Definitely. I honestly thought, if you don't mind me cutting off, I thought Impact has been doing nothing but great things here the past few weeks. When I came off that interview with Luke Gallows before he went with Impact, I knew big things were going to happen, and because Luke was going to help build that. And with all these veterans back in the company now, I feel like they're going to turn this organization in the right direction. Keep an eye on Impact Wrestling in 2021, mark my words.
Absolutely. And of course, coming up soon is going to be Talkin' Shop-A-Mania 2, the hashtag second worst pay-per-view in history. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. I wish I could beg and plead to have been on Talkin' Shop-A-Mania 2 when they recorded it, but that's coming out in November. Right. It would have been so much fun. I know where I'm going to be when it comes time.
I'm just honored to be at least I could say, hey, you know what, Jordan Garber from Jordan Garber Now on his show with Talkin' Shop host Luke Gallows, because that was an honor. And I had one question, and I knew I had to deliver, and I knew I threw Luke Gallows off, because when I asked about AJ Styles, and because when he left the company, AJ Styles felt a lot of guilt, and I knew that. So when I asked him that, after he replied, he was even like, oh yeah, like the way his tone of voice sounded, like this is gonna get out there. I hit a home run. So to spend not a lot of time with Luke Gallows, but to sit there and ask him a big question to get out there was absolutely amazing. And Talk a Shop Mania, it's made me a big fan. And ever since that interview with Gallows, I've been focusing my eyes on Impact when I've had the chance to, and I love it. Even Eric Young coming back has been awesome. What do you think about that?
So bad on me. I'm going to have to admit it just because it'll circle back. When I saw the commercial, when Eric Young's walking through the jail, and he walks by the jail cell and he looks in, at first I thought it was Bob Holly in the jail cell, and I got really confused and didn't understand. But now I was like, oh my God, it's Eric Young. Like, I'm an idiot. Psycho Eric Young, I'll be honest, I love Rich, so when I say this, I did not see Rich Swann winning. I just felt like they had played so much on the injury that they're establishing Eric Young as this dominant psychopath that they just weren't going to give this really clean victory to Rich Swann. And the fact and the presence that he has inside the wrestling community, and especially at Impact Wrestling, says a lot about why they gave him that championship, the skill he has in the ring, back right before the pandemic. Actually, maybe, oh my gosh, it's been last December. I happened to see Rich Swann versus Sami Callihan at a joint Wrestling Revolver Impact taping. And it was the match of the night, hands down. And it was a little like, it was after their televised feud on Impact, and it just resonated so strongly. And it was like, Rich has very, very good things coming that he can also deliver inside of a ring, and he really delivered at Bound for Glory.
No, definitely. This is hilarious. The pizza guy's here right at the same time when we're recording this here. So I'm going to make this next question about pizza. If you could choose a pizza right now and make it on your own, what would it be?
I am suddenly in the mood for Hawaiian pizza, like pineapple and ham.
Pineapple and ham?
Chicken.
Oh, I love chicken.
Chicken would be good. Yeah.
One time I made the, give him a $3 tip if you can. Oh, I did. Oh, okay. Perfect.
Make it 5, even 5.
Make it 5. But no, I love pizza. Like, I tried this one with, like, the barbecue sauce instead of the tomato sauce, and those ones are really good, too.
Yeah.
Like, really, really, really good.
My probably clutch go-to in the moment, if there's nothing else, is sausage. Like, I'm okay with that.
Sausage is really good, too, especially in the morning, like breakfast sausage and things along those lines. It's so good. Yeah. But let's talk about the women's wrestling. Do you think the AEW women's division has improved or not improved before we wrap things up here?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think it's staying stable, and that's not a bad thing. I think, people have given it some criticism, and, where the rest of women's wrestling had sort of shifted inside of Impact and shifted. And, Impact's been delivering solid women's talent for years. WWE had shifted with the women's revolution. AEW, I don't want to say it was a full throwback, but it wasn't quite there yet. And they did step up I would say maybe about 6 months ago. I felt like they were coming into their own, and they kind of like stayed in that lane. It's like, I want to see the next progression of what they do. I just don't think they're there yet, but that's not a bad thing, because that means that they have that potential for it to just continue to grow, and they haven't stepped backwards and gotten worse by any means.
I certainly feel like their women's division continues to grow each and every single week, and I'm going to say, let's look 8 weeks from now. Imagine where it's going to be, right?
That's very fair. That's very fair.
Well, Phil, I appreciate you giving some news and insights. I want you back on next week, back when I'm in the studio. But where can people follow you on social media, whether they're listening from Winnipeg, from Ethiopia, or from New Zealand?
You can follow me anywhere on social media at PS Phenom. That's PSPHENOM. On Twitter, on Twitch, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Snapchat, on TikTok, on YouTube. You got it, at PS Phenom, at PSPHENOM. And visit WrestlingCalendar.com to find out the latest independent wrestling events coming near you.
Oh, I certainly will. And I cannot wait to get back to 150 pounds. Wait till this coronavirus is over and referee once again, and I'm on my journey. I'm eating a lot of pizza, so I'm sure.
There you go. This is your bulking phase.
This is me working out. So workout is coming up next. There you
go.
All right, man. I want to thank you for being on the Jordan Garber Now Podcast. All right, next, let's bring it to some news here with Phil Stamper on the Jordan Garber Now Podcast. Are you looking for the best vehicle for your needs at an affordable budget? Well, Hickman Auto Sales and Financing has exactly what you're looking for. Choose from a wide variety of vehicles like the 2012 Hyundai Tucson GLS, the 2016 Chrysler 200LX, and the 2020 Chevrolet Tahoe. All trades are accepted and paid off, and child tax, pension, disability, EI, social assistance, or self-employed are all approved. Low payments of $0 down. For more information, call 204-898-3511 or visit HickmanAutoFinancing.com. Tell them Jordan Garber Now sent you. All right, guys, welcome to the Jordan Garber Now Podcast, and we are here with none other than Danny Limelight. Danny, great to have you on, man. How you doing?
Garber, my guy, what's up, man? I really appreciate you, having me on the show. I think it might be my first time doing an interview with somebody not in America, so this is pretty cool. I'm excited to be part of your show, man.
Absolutely, and it's great to talk to great talent from New York like yourself. I have some cousins that live there. I have my uncle that lives there, so a lot of family connections bring up New York City and my family. I have a lot of pride in that, and that's also why I wanted to get you on as well. What's it like, though, man? Like, just loving wrestling and wanting to be in the business, but New York isn't the size of Winnipeg, so maybe it's not as easy because it's bigger and it's harder to get your name known because there's so many indies. So how was the beginning of that for you? How did you get through those first few years?
Well, you'd be surprised to know I was not a New York trained wrestler. So I'm from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. I spent 17 years of my life there. I left when I joined the Marine Corps at 17 years old, traveled the world, and landed in California in 2012.
Thank you for your service.
What happened?
Thank you for your service. That's all.
No worries, man. And then in 2014, I began my journey to be a professional wrestler here in Southern California. So even though I am a New Yorker, as you can see, I rep it always. I'm Puerto Rican from New York. But I am a SoCal wrestler, and I take pride being a Southern California wrestler, which, in my opinion, is the hottest wrestling scene on the independents. And, if you look at the list of names of guys that's coming out of SoCal, it goes on and on. And so, really just – those first few years was just trying to make as many shows as possible, try to have the best matches I can, and really build my brand as Danny Limelight, and I took a 2-year break in 2016, after 2016, and I came back in 2018 strong. I won multiple championships in multiple companies. 2019, it really started rocking and rolling for me with my Impact debut, back at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and just really making more states and AAA and things like that. And then obviously 2020, I had a 2020 vision. It's been the biggest year of my career. It's been amazing. And I feel super blessed, man. Thank you so much, to God and to the universe and everything just coming together for me at this time of my life.
Absolutely. And I look at your career, and man, you've been in more promotions and probably podcasts I've done, but it all started out in SoCal Pro Wrestling down there in Oceanside, a lot of shows down there as well in Los Angeles and Imperial Beach. Working those guys like, Ashley Grace, Ryan Kidd, Doug Bosco, Anthony Idol. What were those guys? Did you learn anything along the way in those humble beginnings, wrestling for a company like that, which had a really good following at the time too?
Not really. No, I don't give any credit to that place. Usually people that have interviewed me before knows that me and that place didn't have a good relationship. They get no credit for who Danny Limelight is. I may have started there and learned very, very little about wrestling. They were, in my opinion, I don't like to have this kind of conversation because I don't like to.
No, and if you don't have to, you don't want to. I totally understand.
Yeah, but what I will say is that, from that place, guys like Anthony Idol, is a good dude, man. I really like Anthony Idol. I'm happy to see him at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I don't even know if Ashley Grace even wrestles anymore. I don't know what anybody else there is doing. I know Jude Diz is a good dude, man. He's an amazing wrestler. But I don't associate with SoCal Pro. If anything, I give all my credit in wrestling to David Marquez, because after SoCal Pro kicked me out of their school and told me that I'll never wrestle again and tried blacklisting me and things like that, David Marquez brought me to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Yeah. It's crazy is that I don't like to talk about the story because I don't like to, shit on other people, because I like to keep it and be authentic and just really keep positive energy. But
absolutely,
they kicked me out of their school for winning a match at another promotion in LA.
Okay, that's ridiculous. Let's go on, man. You know what? We don't need to talk about this negative bullshit. Let's go straight to the positives, man.
And what's the best part about it is that I feel like good things happen to good people. And when they kicked me out, they tried blacklisting me, and they told me that I'd never wrestle again. Here we are, 2020, and look at what I'm doing. And I don't think there's been anybody else really, besides guys like Ricky Mandel, who's a good friend of mine, that came out of that school, and really did something in the wrestling world, and so I'm just, grateful that the world and the universe works in weird places and weird ways, and and I'm happy to have climbed out of that place. And you know, thanks to David Marquez for bringing me to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. You know, that's where I learned how to wrestle. I learned how to, 10 months into business practically. I'm wrestling on TV and learning how to work the cameras.
How are the crowds at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood? Because everyone,
it's smaller crowds. You know, the thing about Championship Wrestling from Hollywood is more TV based. You know, so the crowds, when I was there, are decent sized. You know, I would like to see more people in the building. But I think just the location of how far away it is from people, it's hard to get people in the building, I think. But the fact that it's on TV is what we cater towards. And I'm grateful to really have been able to, work for David Marquez this long. You know, I've been a mainstay on United Wrestling Network now for 5 years.
Yeah.
Specifically this last year alone, I kind of take pride, and I really do mean it when I say this, that I feel like I'm the face of the company. I think that nowadays when people think of Primetime Live, when people think of Championship Wrestling Hollywood, my name is one of the first names that pop up. And I'm forever grateful to David Marquez and his crew for that.
Now, when it comes to working on TV, for the first time, because when you start out, you're not working in front of cameras and a TV audience, and it's totally a different vibe and different ways of how you have to react with the camera and everything. Was that a big adjustment for you with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, or did it just click like that?
I think that it was an adjustment, but it wasn't that long of an adjustment. I got paired with Gino. We were Los Primos Rivera. We worked the tag team thing. And we had guys, back then that was in the locker room, like Peter Avalon and all those guys that were there that were on top of the company, like Scorpio Sky, and Rocky Romero was there, and you had Drew Gulak, Timothy Thatcher, that really that was in the back really giving that advice and that critique, and David Marquez and his people's letting us know what we needed to work on and things like that, and it was a test. Obviously, it was very different than working an independent show. And I was very, very new in the business. I had a lot to learn still. Mm-hmm. And I kind of just made it my own, and now here we are. All I do is wrestle on TV now. I am very fortunate because, it's kind of like, I'm not trying to sound cocky, but.
Dude, you have every right to say, because you busted your ass. You busted your ass to get that. So you can sit here for hours and I can't say shit because I haven't worked to that level.
That's not who I am. I'm a very authentic person. I'm very genuine. I'm a good dude, and that's why I never talk about the companies and stuff like that did me wrong, because I don't need to bring that negative energy. But what I will say is that if you look on TV on Tuesdays, you might see me twice with Primetime Live at AEW. You look on TV on Fridays, you're gonna see me on New Japan Strong. You might see me on Wednesdays on Dynamite. You might see me every weekend practically on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood on Saturdays. And so, I would not be where I'm at right now is what I'm trying to get to. What I'm trying to say is I would not be what I'm doing, be where I'm at and doing what I'm doing at all these TV companies if it wasn't for David Marquez and his crew at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. That's where it all started for me. That's where things really, started falling into place. And more specifically this last year, just really grinding and really studying my craft and really learning and really paying attention to what's happening behind the scenes as well. It just leveled me up, man.
Yeah, the one thing I remember doing the Northern Death Tour in February, and the most important thing I learned is, you learn every single day more and more and more. That's my favorite part of the business, because the day you feel like you stop learning, get out of the business, man, because you're learning every single day. I'm going to be 80. I'm going to learn something new. Same with you, probably.
That's the truth. And that's that is how it should be in life, period. I believe that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So even when you feel like you've reached that level, if you're still willing to learn, there's still somebody at the top that's better than you that you can learn. And even if they're not better than you, they could be the newest kid on the block, and you can still learn something from them. I feel like I'm learning every day. I'm learning as I do these interviews, these podcasts. I'm learning as I'm wrestling. I'm learning as I'm sitting in the back watching other people wrestle. I'm learning as I'm looking at what we got going on for the week. I'm learning when I'm working on my promos and stuff like that. It's all a learning experience, and nobody's ever too good to learn something. And I'm blessed now that where I'm wrestling at is such amazing talent, Primetime, let's start with Primetime Live. You got guys like Fred Rosser. You got guys like James Storm there. You got Dirty Dickinson. You got the Wolf Zaddies, Che Cabrera and Tito, who are an amazing tag team, been tag teaming for years that you can learn from. You got Thunder Rosa. You got Miranda Alizé. There's so many people, top to bottom, that you can learn from there.
Yeah.
Okay, then let's talk about New Japan Strong. I'm there almost every week. Matter of fact, just announced this Friday on New Japan Strong, I get my first crack at somebody from the Bullet Club. Danny Limelight versus Chase Owens. Danny Limelight versus Chase Owens this Friday on New Japan Strong. You look at the New Japan Strong locker room, look at the guys there. You know, you got a roster full of people like Jay White, Juice Robinson, Rocky Romero, Jeff Cobb, PJ Black, Kenta. You know what I'm saying? You got a whole bunch of talent, and TJ Perkins, ACH. The list goes on that show. And then let's go to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. You got some of the same people from Primetime Live at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? And then with AEW, you know, making my debut last week and having another match, you know, this week, it is so much talent everywhere, and you just constantly learning and picking everybody's brain.
Man, I have one thing I have to say, man. I hope you take on Chase Owens. I hope you defeat him, because the last time I was in the Rumble with Chase Owens, I was a victim to a package pile driver. So you got to take care of him for me, man. Come on.
Thank you, bro. Owens is that dude, man. You know, one of those Bullet Club guys. You got to be careful with Bullet Club, though. You never
Very
know.
talented.
You never know where somebody from Bullet Club is gonna pop up. They don't fight fair. I learned this, and I'm just excited for this match. It's a good match. It's gonna be a good matchup for me.
Definitely. Now let's talk about New Japan Strong. You know, you're doing that in California, which is really good, but it's still a culture shock. And then AAA, man, that's a dream for myself as a journalist. How was that? That must have been really cool, man.
For AAA, man, that seed was planted years ago. I had a match in San Diego in 2016. It was a 2 out of 3 falls match against Douglas James. We stole the show that night, and I'm saying we stole the show because we did. The main event was full of people like Cholo, B-Boy, Willie Mack was there. You know, it was a huge stacked card, and we were like we went on right before intermission, and we completely stole the show. And it just so happened that Conan was there watching.
Oh, wow.
He loved the match, brought me and Douglas James to Mexico for the Crash, which is a huge company in Tijuana. We opened the Crash. It was 5,000 fans. The main event was Hijo de Santo and Santo in the main event. It was a huge sold-out show. It had Ray Phoenix there. Pentagon was there. Lindsay Dorado was on the card. Willie Mack was on the card. You know, all these guys,
Crazy.
Huge superstars. Garza was on the card before he got signed. Humberto Carrillo was on the card before he got signed. It was just a huge stack card. We opened that show. You know, Conan gave us 10 minutes to go out there and do our best, and we did that. And so that's where my relationship with Conan started. And then when I came back in 2018, I started rocking and rolling. He hit me up again. This time he was working with AAA, and he wanted to bring me out to AAA, so I was able to make my debut and do a couple of shows with AAA.
Awesome, man. How's the lucha style and just like adjusting to it on TV? You know, it's definitely a higher, faster paced style, but, you know, adjusting to that like authentically, 100% in the middle of a AAA ring, man. That's an experience of its own. Was it an adjustment?
Yes, it was. Well, it wasn't so much of an adjustment because I feel like when I came back to wrestling, I was training with Mariachi Loco and Lil Cholo. You guys may know them from the Rabbit Tribe on Lucha Underground, or, you know, yep. Cholo was Mr. Cisco on Lucha Underground, and whatever the case may be. They train mostly Lucha Libre, so I was able to like get back in the ring with them and really focus on Lucha Libre. And so, you know, the transition, you know, I feel like I have a hybrid style where I'm like an American wrestler, but I can do Lucha Libre. I'm a striker, I'm a technical wrestler, I'm a high flyer. Like, I have all these tools in my toolbox. And that's just from training with, you know, not having a school and just training with people like Cholo, Mariachi Loco, you know, training with Jungle Boy, training with Luchasaurus, training with John Morrison, training with Jake Atlas, just all these different kind of people who wrestle so many different styles and putting it all together, you know, to make Danny Limelight, doing the Evolve seminars with Adam Cole and Roger Strong, and just picking the brains of all the people in the back. So having that kind of a hybrid style and then stepping into the AAA ring, I felt like it was really easy for me to mesh with everybody there and really, you know, come into my own and just do my thing while trying to put on the best show possible of Danny Limelight in a AAA ring.
Oh, that's absolutely incredible. Now, you're adjusting now from, you know, major leagues in Mexico to the American majors, you know, just doing some great stuff with AEW. You know, how did you get that call? That's good for you, man.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It was a blessing, man. I got the call. I had reached out to, you know, somebody back there a few months prior, probably like in the middle of COVID, maybe towards like, I want to say like right after I made my debut with New Japan, I reached out. But obviously with COVID and everything that was going on, they were taking their precautions and stuff like that. And then, you know, in the beginning of October, I had got the call. They wanted me to come out, and I was very fortunate to be able to fly out there and just perform and really just take an opportunity that was presented to me and really, you know, try my best to to showcase my talent in the time that I had to do it, against an explosive trios team like Jurassic Express. Shout out to Jungle Boy, shout out to Luchasaurus, shout out to Marco Stunt. I think they're a crazy, innovative, fun trios team. They're all very talented in their own ways. It's being able to step into the ring with them at that level, and that platform, and really teaming with Jersey Muscle, guys that I had never met before, but they held their own, and just being able to showcase what Danny Limelight and who Danny Limelight is. I think I accomplished that, and I felt super grateful for the opportunity, and I can't wait for more. Matter of fact, like I said, this week I'm back on AEW Dark, and I'm taking on Jurassic Express again, but this time it's a tag match. It's me and Casey Navarro against Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. It's gonna be another fire banger. And then if you're talking about this, and if you look at it, man, like I got AEW and New Japan in 1 week.
What is that like for you on your schedule? Do you ever feel overwhelmed, or do you just go, go, go?
I just go, man. And this is like thanks to the Marine Corps in a way. I mean, growing up, I was always hyper. I felt like I was bit by a radioactive spider, and I just have like this kind of radioactive genealogy inside of me, that mutation or whatever you want to call it. I've always been a goer, a doer, and the Marine Corps just really prepared me for time management skills, being able to adapt on the fly, and being a Marine Corps drill instructor really tested my time management skills, really tested, who I am, how I work, my work ethic and things like that, my motivation, my will to not give up. That all came from who I was, born and raised in Brooklyn, but also it was amplified in the Marine Corps after 10 years. And I'm very fortunate that I have those skills, because now when I do this, I can make everything happen whenever I need to. Last week I was at 2 places at once, so it's a grind, and I'm somebody who's never satisfied. I'm always hungry. My tag partner Papo Esco said he's always starving, and I until I get to where I feel like I'm happy. I'm happy where I'm at in life. I'm happy.
There could always be more.
But exactly when I'm fully satisfied, that's when I'll be able to like really sit back and just like embrace it, and then put the foot on the gas again, because I'm not done yet.
Absolutely. And that's why I say thank you for your service all the time, because my family, very big military background. And what I heard is, it brings so much to pro wrestling, because in the military, they break you down, man. They break you down and they turn you into a soldier. So if you have that soldier mindset in pro wrestling school, you're going to go so far, because you're going to get ahead. But however, there have been soldiers in the past who couldn't even finish wrestling training. It's a very hard experience. And that's why it's important to find a good trainer and train with some of the best like you have.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you're 100% correct. The Marines definitely, instilled that discipline, that warrior mindset, that warrior spirit, those ethos inside of me, core values of honor, courage, commitment. And I feel like I was able to really just, showcase that on whenever I'm training, whenever I'm doing something. Nothing slows me down. Even with injuries and things like that, I push through it. I keep fighting. Most of my inspiration comes from my daughter. I know she's always watching me, so I got to make sure that her dad is always ready to go, always ready to fight, always ready to push through it. And I think that I've been doing that. And I just continue to thank God for giving me that strength to do so.
Absolutely. I'm really, until you have a kid and you have to provide and feed for them, you honestly, truly know. I wouldn't know that until I become a father, for example. It's a very sense of responsibility, and especially putting food on the table, doing what you love for a living. Not everyone can do that. So it's definitely a grind, but if it was easy, everyone would do it, right?
Fact. That's 100% correct. If it was something easy, anybody off the street could get up and do it. And I think that goes with a lot of things in life. I don't think I could do what you do. I don't think I could sit up, maybe if I really put my attention to it, I probably could, but like being able to host a podcast, have episodes and bring guests on and really just be able to control an interview, that's a talent in itself, man. Anything you do in life, if you're not driven for it, if you're not grinding, if you're not working at it, you're not going to be good. You know what I'm saying? I feel like having that work ethic, that passion, that's the biggest part of it. You know what I'm saying? And that goes with podcasting. That could go with wrestling. It could go with being in the military. It could go with being a parent. There's just, if you want something, you have to want it as bad as you want to breathe, and you have to grind at it every day until you feel like you're satisfied with where you're at.
Let's talk about some in-ring psychology. Who are some guys that you just worked with? You could just do anything, and it could just, you can go all night, and you enjoyed it in the process. Who are a few guys that would lead by that example?
Some of my favorite opponents that I've had, you mean?
Yeah, opponents, pretty much opponents along the way, and kind of ways the match went along those lines.
TJ Perkins, one, phenomenal. Chris Bay was one of my favorite opponents. Adrian Quest. Clark Connors, I've had some bangers with him. Who else do I like wrestling? Chris Bay, Ray Phoenix. I've had a few mixed matches and tag matches with. He's dope.
He's fast.
Yeah, he's awesome. Sammy Guevara, I had a fire match with. Those are some of my favorite opponents right there. People that I've wrestled that I've really enjoyed wrestling was those guys that I just named: Adrian Quest, Clark Connors, T.J. Perkins, Sammy Guevara, even Rocky Romero. I can wrestle Rocky Romero any day.
I always liked watching him.
Yeah,
he's
awesome.
Great, eh? Oh, you got the Canadian accent. I always say "a" and I try not to. You definitely noticed that there. I always ask my American guests if I have an accent. What do I have an accent to you, or?
When you said "a" just now, it sounded like he's great, eh?
Definitely. Who are, like, in terms of going on the road and things like that? Like, I learned the rules of the road early when I got to go. It was a pleasure for me. What were just some places you just liked wrestling in, some like venues you could mention and throw out there?
Fausto Gutierrez Auditorium in Mexico, Tijuana. Yep. Wrestling at AEW Dynamite, that's a big fight field. Wrestling at the not the LA Dojo, excuse me, the place where we shoot and we wrestle at for New Japan. We're not doing it at the dojo right now, but where we wrestle at the Port Wainimi place, the same place where Championship Wrestling from Hollywood is shot at. It's an amazing venue, amazing place. The production is amazing. Where else do I like wrestling at? It's really where I spent most of my time wrestling this last year. Wrestling in San Diego at Ground Zero. I love the fans over there in San Diego. My favorite fans. And then I wrestled in Rhode Island for XWA. There was a pretty cool venue they had there. That was fun. I'm just a big fan of like wrestling at places where the energy is right, the fans are feeding off of it. And even if it's studio style for tapings and things like that, just the production value, I really admired that as well. And I think Marquez Productions is one of the best production teams out there.
Shout out to David Marquez as well for continuing to put on a great product, because I've watched it and I've absolutely loved it. We've had it on TV here all the way in Canada. It's been everywhere. So, always check out Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. It's an amazing, amazing product that's extremely underrated. I'm sure you'd agree.
Yes, I 100% agree.
One of the most underrated products, like I say, in North America alone, because of their television value and what they bring and the crowd. The crowd, it reminds me of World Class Championship Wrestling from '85, what Snow was talking about. Every body slam, every single clothesline, the crowd is into it and they love it, and that's another reason to check it out.
Yes, and even like when you think of like smaller companies and things like that, I wrestled at like a smaller place in New Jersey. I did one of the CZW Dojo Wars, and that was pretty
nice.
Cool. It was a cool little like fight club type feel,
It's definitely a whole new kind of vibe too. The whole fight club wrestling kind of feel with CZW, and I like what WWE was doing with Raw Underground. I'm not going to get into news, but I kind of wish they kind of stuck with that a little longer. But it is what it is. But in the meantime, where are some places you want to go that you haven't already touched? Like, and when I say that, like, you don't just say like the biggest ones. It could be some, like, maybe some other countries out there that you haven't touched that you really want to go to as well.
Obviously, WWE, obviously. Ring of Honor, I haven't wrestled at. I would like to wrestle in the UK. I would love to wrestle in Canada someday. Companies that I would like to wrestle that I have. I'd love to wrestle at PWG. I'd love to wrestle at Defy. I'd love to wrestle at Limitless. Wrestling Has a Tomorrow. House of Glory. Those are some places that I would really like to wrestle. Get my foot in the door there. What else? What other companies are there? Beyond is another one I would like to wrestle at. So those are just a few off the top of my head. I even, matter of fact, even Australia, that'd be cool to wrestle at. And eventually, when things with COVID get back to normal, I would like to go to the Karukian Hall and wrestle in Japan.
That's my dream. Long ways for me to go. But when it comes to Australia, I heard from another guest who wrestled there. It was Franco Varga. He was on the show. And he talked about wrestling in Australia. They have a weird style. It's cool. It's like kind of like Japan mixed with WWE style, and then like Lucha Libre. It's mixed. It's really cool.
I wrestled the Philippe brothers. Do you know of them?
I heard of them. Yeah.
Steve and Tone. them dudes are dope.
Yeah, they are.
Them dudes are dope. And they're from Australia, man. I had a really good tag match with them a couple years back.
So you know about that style I'm talking about, probably.
Yeah,
it's really different.
I wrestled them out here. They came out here. They were at the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood taping, so that was pretty cool.
Definitely, and that's always a great thing for a worldwide audience too. Is watch different audiences. You know, when you watch or different styles, it's amazing because you learn so very much. But where can people follow you, Danny, on social media?
Well, if anybody's looking for me, man, I'm not hard to find. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Danny Limelight. And if you want to show love, you go to prowrestlingtees.com/Danny Limelight, and all my merchandise is there. I got T-shirts and things like that you can check out. I'm not a hard person to reach. I'm easy to talk to. You know, you can find me on Facebook as well. Just message me. If you have podcasts you want to do, we could do that. If you just want to talk wrestling, if you just want to, follow my journey, hey man, just hit the follow button and let's link, let's network, let's communicate, man.
Definitely, man. I do appreciate the time, and thank you for being on the Jordan Garber NOW Podcast. Are you a wrestling fan? And do you like collecting wrestling merchandise? Well, Hot Shots Retro Rewind and Wrestling Collectibles is the place for you. They have t-shirts, action figures, DVDs, and autographs available. Check it out. Hot Shots Retro Rewind and Wrestling Collectibles on their public Facebook group. All right, guys, coming up next is our main event interview with Vance Archer, also known as Lance Archer, next on Jordan Garber Now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wrestling World 247. I am here with a very special guest, Lance Hoyt, also known in the WWE as Vance Archer. Vance, or Lance, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Watch out for those multiple personalities.
Exactly. So pretty much before we get started and talk about your career, what have you been up to lately?
Since I left the WWE, I've been working with primarily the second largest company in the world, and that is New Japan Pro Wrestling since 2011. I've been doing a lot of good things there since I joined the company. Most notable, I guess, would be my tag team with the British Bulldog's son, Davey Boy Smith Jr., or Harry Smith, or D.H. Smith, as some of the old WWE fans might remember him as. And we've been doing a tag team called the Killer Elite Squad, AES. We've been tearing it up all over Japan, and sometimes on the side of the hemisphere when we can.
Well, I think it's, honestly a really cool idea because the way, the attire is and just all of that, it just seems really, really interesting. And definitely having that international experience for sure. So before we get on to that, pretty much tell us where you trained and how you got to your first major wrestling stop, and that was TNA. How did the road go for you?
I started at a wrestling school that was in Austin, Texas at the time. It was called the SWWF, the Southwest Wrestling Federation. A guy had opened up a school and a warehouse with a good ring and a decent facility, and I had an opportunity to train on a pretty regular basis. I was driving from San Marcos, Texas to North Austin, which was about 45 hours sitting on traffic every day when I could train. And then I started doing the Texas independent circuit, traveling mostly from the Austin and South Texas area to Dallas, Texas. There was a company called PCW, Professional Championship Wrestling, that ran a weekly show and TV in Dallas. And that was primarily where I worked for the next 4 years, leading up to when I started with TNA in 2004. I actually did a few of their Explosion tryout matches in 2003, and then got signed on with the company in March of 2004.
Well, and everyone, any major wrestling fan would have heard of the Rock and Rave infection, and I've heard of that. I remember when I was a young kid, I think I was 13 or 14, and I was always watching TNA, and I always heard of the Rock and Rave infection, and you guys had the Guitar Hero thing. How did the Rock and Rave infection gimmick come along, and did you enjoy that stint in your career?
It's one of those things where, I'd been with the company at that point for about 4 years. They just started teaming Jimmy Rave and I, but Jimmy had just come off of this Ring of Honor stuff. I've been with TNA under a couple of different names.
Dallas.
Jimmy and I had, Dallas, Lance Hoyt. Chris Jimmy and I kind of started a little faction, on TV relationship or whatnot. And they brought Jimmy and they put us together. We actually were the Rock and Ray Infection before we donned the image that everybody kind of knows and remembers of it. But the image that was really created that really solidified what the Rock and Ray was, just kind of came out of nowhere. We showed up to TV one day, and Disco Inferno, or we knew him as Jordan Garber, he came up to us, and he was just like, hey, guys, did you hear the good news? And we're like, no, what are you talking about? We were taping three of the TVs, 3 Impacts that couple days that we were there, and he was like, yeah, you guys are on all the shows. And we're like, this is awesome. It's amazing. He's like, but you know what you're doing? And we're like, no, what do you mean? What are we doing? And he goes, well, you ever heard of the game Guitar Hero? And, it was huge at the time. And all of us just kind of like, oh, my goodness, no, why? And he said, well, here's the deal. You guys all think you're rock stars, but you only play this game. And we're like, oh, my goodness. But then we were like, can we do whatever we want? Can we make it our own? And they were like, absolutely, because unfortunately that set of taping, we weren't really prepared for it, so we just did what we could. He and I both wore jeans and black tank tops and things like that. But then by the time we came back for what I think was the pay-per-view that was bound for glory possibly in Atlanta, we kind of donned what we really wanted to do. I took on kind of that Slash-esque look with the top hat and the tattered jeans and the sleeveless, denim shirt. And Jimmy kind of took on the glam rock, Poison-esque type character. And then obviously Christy Hemme was, just the rock god that she was. And we had fun with it. Like I said, leading up to that, we were putting on all 3 tapings. We had live mic time. We had backstage interview time. We had all the kinds of stuff that we weren't really getting prior to that. So even though at first we were like, oh, my God, you're going to kill us, when they allowed us to be who we wanted to be and have fun with it, it became fun. And then we were having really good matches with a couple of the top tag teams in TNA at the time, which were the Motor City Machine Guns and LAX. Both of them had really, really great matches with both of them. I think it was a Destination X where the 3 teams opened the show, and it was one of those times where we'd all been working together so much, we all worked so good that we had a really, really, really good match, and just blew a lot of people away. And they're like, "Wow, that's how you start a pay-per-view." And so we had a lot of fun with it. I enjoyed it. I thought a lot more could have been done with it, but we were just more of a comedy gimmick, even though I had the size, Jimmy had the ability, and Christy was what she was. So we had all the elements to make it entertaining and good, and all of us could wrestle. Christy could wrestle. So I thought it had a lot of legs. Unfortunately, it wasn't given a lot of opportunity, but we were a part of the major tag team division that was TNA at the time, and we had a lot of fun doing it.
Well, yeah, and definitely anyone would have obviously heard of a Rock and Ray Infection. And then after TNA, I don't remember if you went back on the Indies and then got signed by WWE, or I don't know if you got signed by WWE directly from TNA. But point being so is that you got the call. Like, WWE obviously is the pinnacle of professional wrestling. That's where everyone wants to be. When you got that call, from whoever, maybe Johnny, maybe someone else, how did you feel when you got that call knowing that you're going to go to the big leagues?
Well, it was awesome, and leaving TNA was kind of bittersweet just because I've been there, I've been part of the company as it's growing, going from everything from just the Wednesday night pay-per-views that were out of Nashville to the first Impact TV taping to the first, 3-hour regular pay-per-view that we did, to the first traveling pay-per-view that we did, to the first set of live events, house shows that we did, so I was part of a lot of the firsts that were in TNA, which was a lot of fun and, cool to be a part of in a growing company. But unfortunately, my time had kind of really, really slowed down. I was actually doing some stuff in Japan, and then the conversation was had about me leaving the company. And because I had opportunity to know that I was leaving the company, I had somebody kind of on my behalf make contact and let WWE and the officials know that that was coming available, and if they had interest, I had interest obviously to be there. It worked out very smoothly actually. I taped my last TV or a TNA spot. My contract was null and void. Like I taped on, let's say Tuesday, my contract was null and void on Wednesday. On Thursday, I was in Florida and Tampa, doing what essentially was a tryout situation for WWE. And then the following week, I got the phone call that they were going to hire me into a developmental status, but at the same time still being hired by WWE, the pinnacle of the wrestling business. And it was an amazing, cool time because like I said, it happened very quickly and then kind of seamlessly. And I felt like I had a lot to offer, and it was good not feeling like that. I'd gotten released and then I was kind of just out in no man's land, and that this major company that is WWE had interested in me, and I had a new opportunity. So that new opportunity with that company was just an awesome, cool feeling.
Yeah, and you had the Vance Archer thing going on for sure, and I myself too, as a wrestling fan and an interviewer and journalist, saw that, and I saw that, and I thought that was a really cool thing that was going on, and it was a whole different look. How was that adjustment for you? You had the rock star gimmick, and then you had the short haircut, then you had the I'm intense promo, and it was just a totally different thing. Was that a tough adjustment, or is that just another gimmick you had to go through?
Well, it was kind of a tough adjustment just because the short hair and all that stuff came within. It came within, just a random, very quick moment. Actually, all my time through SCW, I still had the long hair, and I was still rocking the long jacket and all that stuff. And kind of an image that I felt was going to be good for them and for myself. And I got called to TV, and I didn't even realize I was actually debuting. And then the night I debuted, about 5 minutes before the doors opened to allow people to start coming into the building, they decided to cut my hair, shave my face, drop the jacket, change back to the long tights. A lot of real quick changes happened within a few minutes. And, I was at wrestling within, an hour and a half of that time frame. So, everything kind of came at me really fast. It was a tough adjustment. That's one of those moments, I think, where I could say the company didn't give me a fair shake, but then I felt that I didn't do what I needed to do. I think there was a little give and take on both sides. I didn't know exactly what the company wanted from me at that time, because I felt like I was being brought up in one way, and then everything was changed, and it was like, okay, wait a second, what did they want? I don't know. So I was trying to find myself, and they were hoping I would find myself. So I do put a lot of the I don't know what you would call it. I don't want to say blame, that sounds so harsh, on myself, because it was on me to really find who they wanted, find what they wanted, and produce that for them. And I think the ECW product itself actually closing down was probably one of the biggest and hardest things to deal with for me, because like the ECW was a great launching place for so many of the talents. You think of the CM Punks, the Kofi Kingston, the John Morrisons, all the guys that, Sheamus that started on their ECW product, and it has done so many things within the company to this point. For me, it was a great place to start because it was a focus point for myself and several other talents. And then they decided to shut ECW down and start the NXT product. Good for the kids who were going to be a part of NXT, bad for the people who were on ECW, and now we're kind of like, all right, what do I do? And then they obviously came to me with Kurt Hawkins for a while on SmackDown. Things never really panned out, and unfortunately, I left the company.
So, and then after that, you probably, when I interviewed Rhino, he said immediately he got indie dates lined up. Was it pretty much the same? You got indie dates lined up, and then you got signed with Japan?
Well, yeah, I'd worked independent prior to my TNA days. TNA did allow third-party booking, so I was still working for independent shows all through my time in TNA. So when I did leave WWE, I still had those relationships with a lot of the companies, and now I had the WWE name behind me, so I kind of had a value to those companies, probably even more so than I had before. So I immediately went back into the independent scene, started working with companies that I've worked with before, primarily in Texas and a few other places. And then it was June of 2011, I actually tried to go back to All Japan. That was the company I worked for before, back in 2009, before I signed on with WWE. That didn't really work out, so I had my contacts make contact with New Japan. They offered me kind of a one-day tryout, which was a show in Osaka in June of 2011. But once I got around the people, there was a lot of people that already knew and people that knew me, so the relationship kind of was already there, and I went in, I did a good job, and they kept me around since June 2011.
Let's sidetrack a little bit. Before I get to the last few questions, what was one of the biggest disappointments in your wrestling career, if you had to say?
Biggest disappointment? It's just, I think not finding myself the way I could have and should have. Like, I'm very confident in who I am now, what I'm doing as the American Psycho. I know you probably are going to get to that, but that's the moniker that I picked on, and I have a mindset and the way I wrestle and the visual that I have when I come out and I enter the ring and everything that's there. And if I'd have had that when I was in WWE, and if I'd have produced that for them when they put me out there in front of their audience, I know I would have been more successful. So it's not a huge regret in a sense, but it is one of those, I wish I would have found myself, knew exactly who I needed to be when I was with WWE, because I have the tools, I have the talent, I have the ability. I just wasn't producing what was necessary for me to be successful. If I was doing then what I'm doing now, I would have been successful. So when you ask what's my biggest regret, it's just not finding myself and understanding how I needed to be successful in that company, because I know I could have and would have been successful.
All right, and pretty much before we talk about what you're doing nowadays, pretty much what is your kind of like your favorite moment of your career? One of the things that you'll always remember when you retire, and that might be probably WWE. You'll say one of that. You'll probably say that, but from your own words, what was your probably your greatest moment in your career as a professional wrestler?
Man, I've been so blessed, and coming up, actually this Saturday will be my 14-year anniversary in the business, and I'll be wrestling down in South Texas. And I've had so many opportunities, like I mentioned before, with being a part of so many firsts for TNA, to be a part of a company that was growing. I had a match with Abyss in 2005 at Sacrifice, and there was a moment where I did the springboard then Terminator, and, the whole audience was standing on their feet before it happened, and then it nailed it, and it was awesome. Getting to dress, to put on my boots and get in my gear and walk out, even though it was just a pre-show match, it was still a pre-show battle royal at WrestleMania. I got to walk out in front of the 72,000 people that were coming into the stadium and getting ready to watch, Shawn Michaels' final match and things of that nature at that WrestleMania. And then everything that I've had an opportunity to do now with Japan, they run probably the second largest show in the world. It's called Wrestle Kingdom. Every year, January 4th, at Tokyo Dome. And, for the last 2 years, I've had an opportunity to defend with Davey Boy Smith Jr. the IWGP Tag Team titles. And both years, I've had an opportunity to get on a Harley Davidson motorcycle and have a really cool, fun entrance, wrestle in front of 50,000+ people and be a champion and just to be a part of those moments. Like I said, from, the stuff in TNA and Bound for Glory and all that stuff, the WrestleMania, to what I'm doing now with Big Japan and Wrestle Kingdom, those are the cool moments, because those are such big situations and you work so hard to get to those moments, those situations, that they've presented so many cool moments for myself.
All right. What I'm gonna there's a few fan questions that I'm gonna send in, but we might not have. I'll actually ask one fan question that I got in from a guy named Craig, who's actually a good friend of mine. And
okay.
Typical question. The question is, what do you think of Vince McMahon? And the other one from his son actually was, what do you think of Kofi Kingston? What do you think of those two those two people in the business?
Vince is obviously, he's the pinnacle of this business. He's had a family business that has reached such height that it's just beyond understanding how he got there with a pro wrestling company. He's a very intense guy, sometimes you can be around him and he can be very, very I love what you're doing. I love it. I remember one time Kurt Hawkins and I were a tag team and we were doing good things. He liked what we were doing. And just randomly, he's walking down the hallway and he's like, kicking ass. I love it. And he just walked off, and it was just like, okay, wow, that was kind of cool, but crazy because it happened so quick. It was Vince McMahon. And then there are days you don't want to cross his path, and that's just a boss. That's any boss, I think, of any company that's running a multi-million-dollar, multi-billion-dollar successful company. Kofi Kingston, totally cool dude. He's one of those guys that, there's a lot of people in this business that you don't really care for because they're very backstabbish and, they throw you under a bus as quick as they smile at you. And Kofi is not one of those guys. Kofi's one of those guys that he was like Edge to me. Edge was one of those guys that he never changed who he was. He did everything in what I feel like was the right way. He earned his place in the business in the spotlight that he gained. And when he had to retire, people of all different types were genuinely upset. There's some people that have to get out of the business and everybody goes, oh, I'm sorry, but they're happy. Deep down, they're actually happy. Kofi's one of those guys that if he had to get out of the business or if he got released or something to that effect, there would be a lot of people, including myself, that would be like, that sucks, man. I really hate that happened to him because he's such a good dude. So I really like Kofi. I like who he is. We've had a lot of cool conversations. Talent-wise, I think he's, the sky's the limit. Obviously this business, it gives different people different opportunities and some it doesn't, and he is who he is and he's doing what he's doing. I think he's going to have a job for a long time. But he's really cool. I really like Kofi.
All right, and pretty much just tell us anything else you have to say, and what are your upcoming wrestling dates so our fans can find out where you're wrestling next.
Cool. I'm like I said, I'll be down in South Texas doing some lucha shows in Harlingen on Friday, July 4th, and Brownsville, July 5th. And then after that, I'm actually headed back to Japan, which is going to be a part of probably the biggest singles tournament in the world, in my opinion. It's called the G1 Climax, and it starts on July 21st in Sapporo, Japan, and it runs through August 10th, and the final show is at a baseball stadium called the Sebu Dome.
Nice, I heard of it.
Be a part of that. It's 12 shows. It's probably one of the coolest, most intense, tournaments that exist in the business today. And then after that, I've got different dates here and there. I've been, working in heavy on wrestling on August 23rd. I do a lot of stuff with the NWA. The NWA is doing good things, trying to come back into really cool places with a lot of good people that are running the NWA, and there's a lot of good companies within the NWA family that I work with in Houston and San Antonio. And then just a lot of independent shows that I'll be a part of. But the biggest thing I think is the New Japan tournament, the G1 Climax, coming up at the end of July into August.
All right, I want to thank you so much for your time, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Hey, Jordan Garber Now fans. Don't forget to get your Jordan Garber Now merchandise on the Facebook page, Jordan Garber Now Podcast. 8x10s are available, cards and stickers, and much more. Check it out.